One of the more common things you can do to add a tween into this project is to create a shadow for the ball. So I'm going to show you how to make a shadow for the ball, and we're going to be using classic tweens for this. You can use a motion tween, but it gets really, really difficult, especially for dealing with different walls and things. So we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to stay with the classic. So the first thing I need to do is create a layer called shadow, which I did. I'm going to put it right underneath the ball, and then I got to start thinking about my timing. So right around here is when I want the shadow to start showing up on the ceiling from being cast from the ball. What we're going to do is, it's a round ball, so we're going to use the oval tool. I'm going to click on my color palette underneath stroke, and I'm going to hit none because I don't want a stroke. And then I'm going to draw an oval that looks something like this. And that's going to be basically my shadow. Right now it kind of looks more like a hole, but we'll fix that in a second. First thing I need to do is I need to select it, and then I need to convert it to a graphic. So again, if you're on a Mac, it's function F8, or if you're on a PC, it's just F8, or if neither of those work, go to Insert and convert to a symbol, and then you'll get a window that pops up like this, and we're going to go ahead and name it. So I'm going to call it Shadow. Make sure it's a graphic, and make sure the registration's for the center. Okay, so now I have my shadow. And then what I'm going to do is look at my timeline, and like I said, right about here is when I want it to start showing up. So I'm going to take the keyframe, I'm going to move it up. And then what I do is right here is when I want it to be underneath the ball. So I add a keyframe, F6. I move this underneath the ball. And then at this point, I want it to kind of fade away again. So again, I'm going to hit F6, move it to the place where I want it to go. And then I'm going to add on my tween. So again, you click and hold between the two keyframes. Again, we're going to use a classic tween for this. And I'll put on another classic tween. Now, like I said, it kind of looks like a hole that's just kind of following it. I really would like it to fade. To do that, I go to the first frame, and at this point, I want it to be invisible. So if I click on the object, and over here where it says Color Effect, underneath my Properties window, again, if you don't see your properties, just go to Window, find your Properties window, and under Color Effect, I'm going to change that to Alpha. And I'm going to start it with an alpha of 0. So you will notice that it went invisible. And as I move down the timeline, it fades in. Right now it's pure black, so it kind of looks like a hole, so I want to change that, and maybe I'll alpha it to maybe 80 or 90. 90 looks all right. And at this point, I said I want it to fade out again. So I go to my alpha and make it 0. So I get something that kind of looks like this. Now at this point, I maybe start to see it popping up on the other wall. So what I can do is add another keyframe. I will rotate it. And now I'll move it over to the other wall. And then at this point, I want it to make contact. So I hit F6. And then I'll move this down. And again, put on a tween. Classic tween. I need to be able to see it, so I'm going to alpha it up. I think 90 worked okay last time. And so now I get something that looks like this. And again, I would want to alpha it away. But you kind of get the idea of how we can use classic tweens and alphas to make this look like a realistic ball.